the Football Writers Association was founded in 1947. Why do you think the writers chose Sir Stanley Matthews as the inaugural winner of the award?
Well, for people who weren't around at the time, he was Messi, Pele, Maradona rolled into one. I mean, he really truly was the god of football. And so it was obvious that to launch the FWA award, Stanley was the man.
So what type of player was Stanley?
I need to tell you his background to give you an idea. He was born in Stoke in the Potteries, and his father was Jack Matthews, a barber, who was known as the fighting barber of Hanley. And his skill was with his hands, and he was famous for rarely taking a punch in the ring because of his clever footwork, but because of his hand speed. And he could fox any opponent by showing him one hand and hitting him with the other. He was very clever, and he was famous for being a magician in the ring. And lo and behold, Stanley inherits that skill, but in his feet. And if you saw Stanley playing, he was known as the Wizard of Dribble, and that really summed him up because he baffled every fullback he ever encountered. He always played right down the right touchline, rarely came inside, but he would run past fullbacks as though they weren't there simply by baffling them, and they were tackling Stanley Matthews, but what they found, they were tackling his shadow. And then he had the perfect right foot cross. And there was a centre forward at the time playing for England called Tommy Lawton. And Tommy once complained to Stanley, he said, next time you play, can you please cross the ball with the lace facing away from me? That's how accurate Stanley was.
So for some younger viewers of this, are there any modern players that remind you of Stanley?
With skill, with skill with the feet, I would say Lionel Messi. But what Stanley did, he was a holding player, and he would beat a player with acceleration, just short bursts, and then, as I say, cross the ball. Whereas Messi, of course, would go for goal and he was a goal scorer. Stanley was rarely a goal scorer. He once scored a hat-trick for England. It was the only one of his career, and it was at White Hart Lane, I think 1937, against Czechoslovakia. And that made headlines simply because Stanley, the goal maker, had suddenly become Stanley, the goal taker. But it was a very rare occurrence.
So, I mean, you say, so he scored that hat-trick for England in 1937. He won this award in 1948, so that's already 11 years. But that was only the first time he won this award, because he went on to win it a second time in 1963. So that's a hell of a career.
Well, by then, he started off playing with his local club, Stoke City. He then had a long career with Blackpool, and there were riots, literally riots, in the streets of Stoke when he was sold to Blackpool. And when, at the back end of his career, he went home and started playing for Stoke again, he helped them win the Second Division Championship. And the people in Blackpool, they all protested, and they organised protests in the streets because Blackpool had sold their god. That's how big he was.
So it was 15 years between his two FWA awards. I mean, how could a 48-year-old still be capable of playing at such a level to become Footballer of the Year?
He was a fitness fanatic. He was way ahead of his time with dieting, and he used to give lectures on how to keep fit through eating the right things. He ran every single day of his life, even in old age. And what you have to remember, he's the only footballer ever to play in the old First Division, which is now the Premier League, of course, the old First Division, at the age of 50, which is fairly remarkable.
Yeah, it really is. So you interviewed Sir Stanley about his Footballer of the Year awards. What did this honour mean to him?
When he first won it, there was no such thing as an award anywhere in the world, a sports award, and he was completely bewildered that he was receiving something without having to kick a ball. And this was the first award of its kind, and of course they're now 10 a penny. But Stanley was immensely proud to be the very first person in the world to win a sport award for Player of the Year.
1953, Stanley played probably what was the game of his life and what's become known as the Matthews final. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's called the Matthews final when really it should have been called the Stanley's final, because his centre-forward partner, Stanley Mortensen, he scored the only hat-trick in an FA Cup final. And so he should have been remembered and written in stone that he had performed as well as Stanley. But Stanley was playing on the right wing, and they were losing 3-1 Blackpool. It looked dead and buried. But in the last 20 minutes, Stanley turned the match on his head by completely bewildering the Bolton defence with his fantastic wizardry runs down the right wing. He made 2 more goals to Stan Mortensen, and they emerged winners 4-3. Which one of the most exciting finals, one of the most exciting matches ever witnessed.